Welcome to the fourth night of Lot, or fourth night of the Oracle, or also fourth night of Fate. Sunset of 5th of December until sunset of the 6th of December. So, like the Holy Nights, also the Nights of Lot go from sunset till sunset. Today is the 5th of December. Tomorrow, 6th of December, is Saint Nicholas Day, Heilige Nikolaus in Christianity, and the meaning of him reading from the book of justice, or you could also say the book of karma, is cause and effect, that we understand how to handle causes and effects and how to gain ultimate freedom. Hello and welcome. Here is Aditya Novotny, and I congratulate you that you are participating in this vision quest that is actually quite old. It goes back 2,500 years, if not longer. It's been known in the Celtic tradition, the Druids, in the Germanic tradition, the priests and wise women of ancient Germans, but also in ancient Slavic traditions, where there was a lot also of wise women who had a lot of knowledge. And this got overshadowed or overcast by Christianity, not immediately, because still in these areas, Celtic areas, Germanic areas, Slavic areas, it was took centuries after Christ till it became Christianized. But eventually they put a cloak on it and covered these special 6 nights and days that are in the silent time, or later in Christianity called Advent time, the 6 hallmark nights, where the veil to the inner world is the thinnest, and where seers could see into the causal plane or into the world of ideas, as Plato called it. So, what is to be or what is going to come? And they were the first part of a 2 part process to prepare for the new year. And actually, it starts, and I will give you the list here and make myself smaller. Here we are. First night is the night of Saint Catherine, the Catherine's dance, which is actually the carnival time. If you know it from a Christian point of view, starts on 11th of November, 11/11. Carnival starts, but it's a very short first part of Carnival because it goes only till the night of St. Catherine, 24. And this is when the last dance happens, Catherine's dance. And then with 25th of November, the Advent time starts. After the 25th of November, first Sunday is the first Advent, the second Sunday, the second Advent Sunday, and so on. In the olden days, for the Germans or Germanic tribes, the Celtics, or also the Slavic ancient people, it was really with that particular night of 24th to 25th, that turning to the inside. So last dance, last having fun outwardly, and then turning to the inside was the main theme, to reflect, to go inward, to find your inner strength, the beginning of the silent time. Second night, night of St. Andrew, 29th to 30th of November, was then, now we are inside, we entered our heart, we entered our own inner consciousness. And what is there the most important thing? Love, of course, but also connection to our soul, connection to the true reality in others. How do we connect? Through love, but also connection to the divine. How do we connect to the divine? Preferably through love. You might know that there is 2 hearts, 1 heart in the crown, 1 heart in the heart, the mystical heart or heart chakra. And this is something the 2 heart method or 2 heart meditation comes, for example, from Taoism. So it's not just Christianity, Christian mysticism, or the ancient traditions that really, and I have to say this explicitly, it's a vision quest. It's a vision quest like North American native Indians do, like many traditions have done. They want to figure out what's going on, what's going to happen, and what's going to happen for me personally. And how should I behave, or what should I do to make things in my life favorable? And this is what the Knights of Lot. Lot means, of course, your fate. What's your lot? That's your lot. By the way, from the word lot comes also lottery, which is indeed playing with fate, playing with your lot. And it can have serious karmic consequences. If you win in the lottery, that's a lot of money coming to you at once, 1.5 million in some cases. Now, where does it come from, and what does it do to the rest of your existence in the stream of time if you win the lottery? Well, there is always balance. Eventually, there's always balance. That means what is given to you abundantly, more than abundantly, at one time, if it's not earned, if you have not worked for it, can go missing at other times. May have been missing before or may go missing later on, as indicated by lottery millionaires who, on average, have lost everything within 1.5 to 2 years and are even often bankrupt after 5 years because it's a heavy impact. So don't play with fate. Get the real understanding of the Knights of Lot so you understand your lot, you understand your fate. And then the oracle, or seeing beyond the veil, seeing what is destined for you, takes on a totally different perspective, and you understand what it's really about. Now, in this first half of these two periods, first the 6 days of Lot, or 6 nights of Lot, better to say, nights and days, and then after winter solstice, the holy nights, the 12 holy nights. This was the ancient preparation for the new year. People cared about what would happen to them in the coming year. They lived in earth huts or straw huts or wooden little houses. There was no big buildings. There was no glass for the most part in the early days. It was cold. They had a fireplace inside and they were cuddling together there in this dark and silent time between November 24th and December 20th, till finally the winter solstice came. And interestingly enough, the winter solstice was already known even to these early people, that the sun would become stronger again. I don't know how they figured it out. Maybe it was their priests or their seers or their wise women or their shamans. Whoever they were, they knew that already. And so the first period, the silent time, the night, the time of the Knights of Lot was over. That was looking beyond the veil, looking into the causal realm or into the world of ideas, as Plato called it. And now it was in the second half, the Holy Nights, it was about how to use this information that was gathered in the Holy Nights. And actually, taking in this information went on also during the Holy Nights. First, preparation days from 21st till 24th of December, and then the actual Holy Nights, 25th, the first Holy Night pertaining to January, 26th of December, the second Holy Night pertaining to the month of February, 27th of December, the third Holy Night pertaining to the month of March, and so on, till January 5th, pertaining to next December. And then the final, the day of the 3 wise men, or the day of the 3 magi, the day of the 3 kings that came from the east to give gifts to Jesus. And that's on 6th of January. And that concludes this very special time that actually starts with November 24th at sunset, when the last dance in honor of Catherine is done. And in the end, in the morning of the 7th of January, you come out into the new year. You really come out from a portal. And then Carnival, by the way, resumes. So we have this first part of Carnival from November 11th to November 24th. And then it's full stop, silent period, Advent time, and then Christmas days and the Holy Nights. And then 7th of January, Carnival resumes all the way until the Eastern period starts, and before the fasting time starts sometime in February. And it's quite interesting if you look at the symmetry. Even Carnival has a symmetry. The November before, still in the sign of Scorpio, life and death, and then the Carnival after the 6th of January, resuming. That's perfect symmetry. And I wonder what that actually meant. Why this Carnival time before and after this special time of silent nights, holy nights? It's also interesting, these nights of Lot falling into the silent time, as it was called, and then the holy nights falling into the Christmas holidays all the way till January 6th. And the composer of Silent Night, Holy Night, or Holy Night, Silent Night, it's quite interesting that he picked up these two terms. By accident, I come from Salzburg. I was born in Salzburg. I know the places very well. Wagrain, where the guitar player comes from, who performed it, who composed the melody, and Oberndorf, north of Salzburg, where the text was created, and the chapel in Oberndorf, where even today, on the evening or in the night of the 24th to the 25th, basically at the beginning of the Holy Nights, this Christmas Mass is being celebrated. And of course, 1,000 people come. And it's crowded outside because the church is not so big. If you ever spend the holiday season in Salzburg, you may be able to experience this. So we have these particular nights and days that have a meaning, in which the inner world opens up, in which the seers, the priests, the shamans, whatever they were in these early pre-Christian days, could get information about the future. First, 24th to 25th, going inside, reflection, gaining inner strength. Second, the night of love, 29th to 30th of November, when dreams come true. This is the night of Lot, the 29th to 30th, the second night of Lot, that is the most important in terms of dreams. Nights, dreams, if you remember them, you will be able to verify this. They always become true. This is the one night that is supreme in terms of dreams becoming reality, 29th to 30th. The other 5 nights of Lot are also important in terms of dream work. I will speak about it shortly. But 29th to 30th, the night of love, connection, and oneness is the most important. Then we have the night of St. Barbara, where the twig of an apple or a pear or a forsythia or a cherry can be cut off and put in a vase inside. And you put it in the vase, and at Christmas, December 25th, it will flower. And it's amazing. It almost always does if you change the water regularly. And a little trick I learned from a woman who deals with these things, Susanne Kunze from Dresden. She said, spray with a water spray bottle on the twig as soon as the buds are there, because sometimes the buds otherwise dry out in the heated indoor atmosphere. So if you want to make sure that these twigs come to blossoming and flowering, then spray them after, as soon as actually the buds become visible. And By the way, that's a very good omen if your twig, St. Barbara's twig as it is called, is blossoming and in full bloom by 25th, 26th of December. And that brings us to St. Nicholas or St. Nicholas, whichever version you prefer. And this is the night from the 5th to the 6th December, to be more exact, sunset of 5th to sunset of 6th. The theme of this particular night is cause, effect, and freedom. Cause, effect, and freedom. Or you could say it more figuratively, fate, justice, and freedom. Fate, justice, and freedom. Where do the causes come from? Are they really fate? Or are they the effect of former causes? Former effects. Yeah. Of course, it's the wheel of karma, as it is called in India. And the wheel of karma means that always, I don't know which, because I think it's mirror-wise what you see, but that would be probably clockwise for you then. I hope so at least, otherwise imagine clockwise. Because clockwise rotation is opening up, anti-clockwise rotation is closing, like opening a screw, closing a screw, or opening a chakra, closing a chakra. Whichever way it is, because with these cameras, it's usually mirror-wise. So this is a very important information that here we learn, and this was the night where these ancient Celtic, Germanic, Slavic seers and wise women looked at karma, at cause and effect, and the causes being again effects of earlier causes, and these causes again, earlier causes. And how we would react to these causes would be an effect. And if times were tough, if we felt treated unfairly, if we said, this is too much now, I don't want anymore, and this is too much, and why is everything going bad? And you react badly, you react negatively, you're sowing the seeds for new bad causes. Actually, the way how you react becomes a new cause. So when things are really bad, the most important thing is stay cool, stay centered, stay focused. There will always be another day. The only thing that is sure in this universe is things will change. If things are bad, they will become good again. If things are good, they will become bad again. This is the one thing, change is the constant of the universe. So this is why in India it's symbolized as a wheel of karma, the karmic wheel. Knowing this, the question is how you get out of it. How do you attain freedom? And you could say it's like a pendulum that swings, like good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, light, darkness, light, darkness, light, darkness, day, night, day, night, day, night, summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter, and so on. You know the drill. So Jesus Christ spoke about, and it's even in the gospel, to go beyond good and evil. To go beyond good and evil. How do you do that? What is the place beyond good and evil? If you think of a pendulum, there is an axis on which the pendulum is fixed. And this is the only place, this axis of the pendulum, which stays silent. Yet it is the cardinal point or the assembly point of the whole pendulum. Because without it, pendulum would not have a center around which it swings. And our task is to find that which Jesus Christ called to go beyond good and bad. Go to that beyond good and bad, because it's neither there nor it's there. It's here, above and beyond. In spiritual terms or occult terms, it would be above the head. It would be a higher perspective. It would be the higher self. And I come to that because we have, of course, a very important figure that Christianity put on this day where people of old days, since about 2,500 years ago, were gazing into the night, reading the signs. What fate would they have? What karma do they have? What would the next year bring to them in terms of good fruits and bad fruits? As Jesus Christ called it, as you sow, so thou shalt reap. As thou sowest, so thou shalt reap. So if we sow good seeds, we reap good harvest. If we sow bad seeds, we reap bad harvest. And even if we sow good seeds and then we do bad, then our harvest will be bad. So stay focused, stay consistent, stay on the happy side, on the positive side, even if things are difficult. And if we sow bad seeds, of course, how can we expect them to become a good harvest? Well, still, if you really do a lot of effort, you can still turn situations around into better. If the seeds are, of course, bad, it's relatively hard to make them into an excellent harvest. But still, sometimes, and this is also because the pendulum always swings, out of a bad situation can become a good situation. Out of a good situation can become a bad situation. And if you ever want to escape, there's only one point, and that's the axis, that's the assembly point, that's the cardinal point, where the whole pendulum is fixed. I hope this figure makes sense to you. Now that we know that, let us look into the historical figure of Saint Nicholas or Saint Niklas. He was, because of the date that he was put on by Christianity, and again, he lived around the 3rd century after Christ, born in something like 276 or 276, 276 or 280. It was early days, and he was of Mira in southwest Anatolia, about 100 kilometers, I would say. How much is that in miles? Southwest of Antalya, which is nowadays in Turkey. In those days, it was Greek-speaking, ancient Greek-speaking. And 100 kilometers southwest of Antalya is this place called Myra in Lycia. Today it's called Demre. And so it's 60 miles southwest of Antalya. Already in the 4th century of the Christ, it was a seat of the bishop. And people spoke ancient Greek. And the reports of Niklas go back to Andrew of Crete, around 700, and from a monk called John of the Studit monastery in Constantinople that was founded in the 5th century. According to converging traditions, Saint Nicholas was born between 270 to 286 in Patara, another town in Lycia. So that's how unexact, how unknown really his birth date is. Sometime between 270 after Christ to 286 after Christ. So basically by 300 something, he was a grown-up man. And with 19 years, with an age of 19, he was ordinated as a priest by his uncle, who was also called Nikolaus or Niklas or Nicholas, who was then the bishop of Myra. And then he became an abbot of the monastery of Sion close to Myra. Now, Nicholas, and there is 2 or actually more versions of his life story. But it is on the one hand said that he took part in the Council of Nicaea, which was very important regarding the text of the New Testament, particularly the text of the four Gospels, because only one Gospel was written by someone, John, who even knew Jesus alive. The other three apostles, the other three Gospelists, they were written by people who never saw Jesus. It was hearsay, basically, what they wrote down. So there were divergences, there were discrepancies. And for that reason, finally, I think the year was 315 after Christ, that Council of Nicaea was called into existence to smoothen out the differences and discrepancies. More about that later. Let's go first with the version that during the chase after the Christians, that was 310, so 5 years before the Council of Nicaea. He was taken prisoner and he was even tortured. And he had quite some possessions because he had a rich heritage. So he gave all that he had to the poor people, to the people suffering. And this was also stated by other bishops like Ambrosius of Milano or Basilius of Caesarea, that Saint Nicholas was very compassionate and gave a lot to the poor. And there is a lot of legends about him. So I will tell you only some of these legends, because if you scan through the internet, you will find out that there is a lot of this information available anyway. But I will tell you some of the key legends, because that helps you to better understand this personality. So Andreas or Andrew of Crete and John of the monastery in Constantinople, the Studit monastery, they reported that Nicholas was participating in the Council of Nicaea and that he really slammed or gave his opponent Arius a smash in the face. And that's for a bishop who he was by that time, 315, quite an extraordinary way of behaving. Now, one could, of course, ask, without getting into conspiracy theories, but who knows, maybe there were even conspiracies back then, that because they wanted to smoothen out the discrepancies between the different Gospels, particularly the one of St. John and the other three, and this is really according to modern Bible research, there were certain authorities put in place, and they were called correctores. Correctores. You heard right, correctores, meaning like correcting the Gospels so that it all fits. And in the course of this correctores action, the correcting the divergence of the four Gospels, also certain ideas were basically deleted from the Gospels. For example, the idea of karma, which is central to the figure of St. Nicholas. And maybe that's why he slapped Arius in the face at the Council of Nicaea, because he was a very just man and he knew about this principle of what later was kept in the Gospel: as you sow, so thou shalt reap. And also the golden rule: do to others what you wish to be done to yourself. So do good if you wish to be done good to you. That's like the last remainder of the principle of karma. But St. Nicholas was reading out of the Book of Justice. He was really a specialist, an expert, one would say nowadays, in these areas, in this theme of justice, karma, sowing the seeds that will become a harvest. And because he slapped Arius at the council, he was taken prisoner. Maybe this was the second time taken prisoner after 310, the second time. I don't see an exact timeline or coherence here, because the stories and legends we know about him, they're scattered. It's not continuous. But by the end of the Council of Nicaea, he was rehabilitated. Yet he was not a undersigner or signing the results of the council, and the results were profound. Idea of karma was erased. Idea of reincarnation was erased. This is another big one. You maybe know, and I won't tell you the names now because that's a bigger discussion, that John the Baptizer was basically preparing the way for Jesus. But I think it was Elias and Eliphaz. Now I spilled out the names. They were already reincarnating, and they were in very similar role before, as the one preparing like the smaller master and then the great master, in this case, Jesus. So Niklas was not allowed to undersign this list of changes that were put to the Gospels in the Council of Nicaea. And the changes are incompletely mentioned further on. So how do I know this? There's one apocryph source which has been discovered in the early 1920 or so, around that time, before these scrolls in the desert that were discovered, I think, by 1938. That's called the Gospel of the Perfect Life. And there is all these texts inside where Jesus even speaks of karma, where Jesus even speaks of reincarnation, where Jesus even speaks of vegetarianism, although he ate fish, but he still gave remarks to the point that animals should not suffer so that human beings could fill their bellies. Again, minus the fish, that is. Now, this gives you some idea why Nicholas was not allowed to undersign, because he was a just man and probably was driving him nuts what they had taken out of the official gospel. Afterwards, it was official. It was like streamlined, all the four gospels. And it's remarkable that still St. Nicholas became such a prominent and popular figure. In fact, Santa Claus, which is an invention by the Coca-Cola company, Santa Claus is directly derived from St. Nicholas, including the bishop's hat, the fish hat, that became then this red. Well, why red and why is Santa Claus dressed in red? Because red is the color of Coca-Cola. But before, still, St. Nicholas was very similar to later on Santa Claus. That's also what many people can't figure out. Wow, Santa Claus is only about 100 years old. Well, excellent marketing, becoming a modern reality or modern belief based on that figure of St. Nicholas. Now I tell you a little bit because there's a lot of stories, and you can research this if it interests you on the internet, of course, of all places. Now, here you see he was born between 270 and 286 in Patara, down in Lycia or Lycaea. According to tradition, he was ordained as a priest at the age of 19 by his uncle Nicholas, who was also a bishop at that time, the bishop of Myra, then became the abbot of the monastery of Sion near Myra. He was captured and tortured during the persecution of the Christians in 310. He distributed his inherited fortune among the needy, was always ready to help the needy. When St. Nicholas was laid to rest, and this is, I'm jumping, of course, but I told you the whole period of the Council of Nicaea in 315, and the éclat, the scandal that he was slapping Arius because of disagreements, and then he was not among the undersigners of the declaration of that council, for reasons I explained to you. Later on, he died. That is also not known exactly when he exactly died, and he was laid to rest. And now comes an interesting story. A fountain of anointing oil sprang up at the head of the sarcophagus, and a fountain of water sprang forth from his feet. Why is that important or interesting, even if I have no idea if that really happened? It's the second time that with these 6 nights of Lot, we have an indication that anointing oil was basically carrier oil, and they used olive oil in those days, as you can gather from the recipe of Moses from the second book of Moses, or how's it called in English, Exodus 2. Exodus 2 has this recipe of myrrh and cinnamon and cassia and what is it? Doesn't come to my mind, but we will speak about it later in one of the holy nights. I will give you the exact recipe. And the carrier oil, which was olive. And it was about 4.95 liters of carrier oil, olive oil, that Moses had. And 1 hin, it was called 1 hin, an ancient Jewish measure, and nearly 1 liter of essential oil, myrrh, cassia, cinnamon bark, and calamus. Now it comes back to my mind. Just these 4. 1 liter nearly. And that was what Moses carried over when they traveled through the Red Sea to the Holy Land after fleeing the slavery in Egypt. And he kept his whole tribe of Israelites healthy and happy with these nearly 6 liters of anointing oil. So this is to understand why is it always called anointing oil and not essential oil, because it was mixed. And as you see here from the measures, like 1 liter was essential oils and about 5 liters was carrier oil, fatty oil. So about 1/6 was essential oils and the rest was carrier oil or massage oil, however you put it. Now, this is also interesting. What oil exactly sprang forth at the head? Not only of St. Nicholas, but of St. Catherine, because you heard the story before. And she is buried. Her sarcophagus is buried on the peninsula of Sinai at the St. Catherine Monastery, which is nowadays, because of war activities, terrorist activities, hard to reach. However, people I know that traveled there before the whole situation became even more complicated than it already was, they said it's tremendous. It's in the desert of Sinai. It has a tremendous aura. And there are the remains of St. Catherine. And they didn't see an oil springing forth even nowadays, like 1,700 years or whatever it is later, because also St. Catherine lived around that time. But even the thought that from the head or the crown of 1 man, St. Nicholas, and 1 woman, St. Catherine, springs forth an anointing oil is amazing. It shows you the magnificence and the importance of anointing oil in this culture. Now, another hint is that from the feet of St. Nicholas springs forth a fount of water. Now, at the feet means for the physical, for the body. How do you quench the thirst of a physical body? With water. From the head springs forth an anointing oil with ethereal components, with ether particles, because 1/6 is essential oils. How do you quench the thirst of a spirit or of the aura of the ethereal body? With oil, with essential oil, with ethereal oils, even if a carrier oil was mixed, at least in the case of the anointing oil of Moses. And that's a big story. This symbolism tells you something. You need the water and you need the oil for different purposes. Now, let's go to the legends that I will tell you, and there is more than the 3 legends or 4 legends that I will tell you, and you find them in the internet, and they're really all interesting. Now, the first legend I will have to translate this from German because I don't find the English source. So forgive me, it will be a little shaky direct translation. You can actually look up Saint Nicholas or Nicholas of Myra on Wikipedia and read more about him. Yet it doesn't contain a detailed list of the miracles that I will read you out, at least not in the English. These are the legends of some of the miracles that he performed. One is, how is it called? In English, Mitgift. We call it in German. It's the dowry or endowment. What is the miracle of the endowment? A poor man intended to make his own 3 daughters prostitutes because he didn't have the means for an endowment, so he could not marry them according to custom. Nicholas, who was at that time not a bishop yet, but he inherited quite some fortune, heard about this terrible situation of these 3 young women. And he threw through the window of these 3 maidens, and probably they didn't have a glass window. How else could he throw in? He threw in 3 big lumps of gold, of all things, each night, one. One for the one woman, next night, one for the second woman, third night for the third maiden. And in this third night, actually, the father, because of course they saw, wow, there's gold suddenly in our chamber, the father managed to discover or detect St. Nicholas hiding somewhere in the bush and throwing in the gold shaped like a ball or like something round. Come to that later because that's also important in the story. And he asked him for his name and he thanked him. Because of this legend, the saint is often portrayed with 3 orbs, 3 golden orbs, or 3 apples, 3 golden apples. So he's portrayed with, how you call it, wand, a bishop's wand on the one hand, which shows his authority, also his connectedness between heaven and earth. An eremite's wand, or however you would call it, hermit's staff. And the second thing is the book of justice that he would read out from. And the third thing is actually these 3 apples, these 3 golden apples or 3 golden orbs. And you see it in this picture here. You see the book, you see the 3 golden orbs, and you see the hermit's staff, which becomes the bishop's staff or the magic wand, if you want to call it like that. So that's the insignia of St. Nicholas become more clear here from this story of the endowment. Now there's another story where he silenced a storm at sea. There were on the high seas seafarers who were crying with prayer for help because there was a strong storm. And they were praying to the holy Nicholas. At that time, he was already holy, historically, and he appeared to them because of his supernatural powers. But it was not clear who he was because he just appeared on that ship in the middle of the storm situation. And he took over the steering wheel, how is it called, with the rudder, I believe. He took over navigation And he even put the sails right. And this is quite interesting because, taking over the navigation and setting sails in a correct way, that has to do with how do you deal with cause and effect? How do you deal with darkness and light? How do you deal with good and evil? How do you deal with opposing forces? That is shown here in this second legend of silencing or pacifying the terrible storm at sea. And after he had taken over navigation with the rudder and set the sails correctly, the storm just abated and the waters became silent. And then he disappeared. On the high seas, he just disappeared. When the seafarers returned and were praying in the church of Myra, the main church of Myra or Myra, and they were actually praying to thank for their for being saved from the storm. They saw the bishop because he was alive still in those days, even he was an older man, and they recognized him was the same man. That saint was the same man as the bishop of Myra called Nicholas. Because of this and similar stories, because he did not just save this particular ship and the sailors there, but it happened more often. Saint Nicholas became the patron saint of the seafarers. Another one is the miracle of the the wheat. There was a big hunger period, and the Bishop of Myra heard about it, that there was a ship in the harbor of Myra, which should bring wheat to the emperor in Byzance, in Constantinople. And the bishop, St. Nicholas, he asked the sailors, to take part of the harvest, part of the wheat, out of the ship again to help those in dire straits because there was a great hunger. And these sailors said, no, we have to bring the whole amount to the emperor of Constantinople. Only after Nicholas, the bishop of Myra, was promising to them that they would not incur any problems because of not bringing enough of the wheat to the emperor, they agreed. They believed him for some reason. When they arrived in Constantinople, however, they found out that the exact weight of wheat that they were supposed to bring was still there, even though they took out quite a lot to help those who had the hunger. The wheat that was taken out in Myra, or Myra, the city that is nowadays Demre, 160 miles actually from nowadays Antalya, lasted for 2 full years, fed people for 2 full years, and even afterwards there was enough seeds to sow again new wheat. These are some stories. I only told you 3 of these stories, but it's quite amazing. And there's always a kernel of truth, cum grano salis, and is said in these stories. It gives you an idea of Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas stands for justice and self-determination, because only if you're just, you will be able to determine your own fate. If you're unjust, your fate will be determined by others. This is why the knowledge of the principle of cause and effect, or karma, as we call it nowadays, it comes from the Sanskrit karma, is so important for fate and freedom, and for the knowledge of the laws of light and darkness and the laws of cause and effect. Saint Nicholas was the symbolic figure, and this tells you now also why he was an opponent basically to the mainstream in this Council of Nicaea, and why even in this confrontation with Arius, he was slapping him in the face because it was just unjust what they did to these ancient and nowadays mostly lost again. If you find this gospel of the perfect life was discovered sometime between 1910 to 1920. And it's, of course, something that the Catholic Church has never confirmed, even that it exists or that it is true. But Bible researchers found out there were correctores, correctionists in this particular council to smoothen out the discrepancies. I talked about it before. So St. Nicholas rescues those who have unjustly found themselves in an unfortunate situation, as these three different stories outline. The three maidens that by their own father were destined to become prostitutes. Can you imagine? The sailors in this sea storm with a magically appearing and disappearing saint, and then this wonder with the grain, basically like like Jesus multiplied the bread. Nicholas multiplied the grain, the wheat, and saved those big number of people who were suffering from hunger, and still the sailors could bring the full amount to the emperor in Constantinople. Amazing stuff. His symbols are, as I said, the crosier, the hermit's staff or hermit's wand, the book of fate or book of justice, in which good and bad deeds are recorded. By the way, in Europe, we have this tradition that St. Nicholas comes on the evening of the 5th and speaks to the children. Oh, are you good this year? Did you behave well this year? Well, of course, parents paid a man to masquerade and to talk to the children. And they told him, actually, they gave him a slip of paper in his book of justice. So he knew what to tell the children. Oh, I see you did this good deed, and you did that good deed, and you did that good deed. You're such a good boy, you're such a good girl. Oh, but I see here, you also did some bad things. And I experienced this myself as a child. This was frightening. How did he know? And also once, he was not alone. A Krampus came with him, a kind of a devil figure. There are various names in the Germanic tradition, for example, Krampus in the Alpine region, the Knecht Ruprecht in Middle and North Germany, or the Zwarte Piet in Friesland and Holland, and also a Flemish part of Belgium. Black Peter, basically. And this is kind of a devil figure, or you could say a wrathful deity if you take it from Tibet, or it would be like a Kali figure, like Kali, the active part of Shiva, or the Shakti of Shiva. And here you see them. I put in a picture, and I take myself out of here, that you see them both. St. Nicholas with the crosier, with the hermit's wand, with the book of fate or book of justice, the hat, which actually reappears with in a different way with the Coca-Cola Santa Claus. And this is another important one, actually. I talked about that anchor point or axis for the pendulum or assembly point. So the pendulum swings. And here we are caught in the world between good and evil. But you have to go beyond good and evil, as Jesus Christ said. And this is what is at the top of that particular hat that all the bishops are wearing, even to this day. Some say, well, the symbolism is like a fish because it was the age of Pisces. But on the other hand, it's quite interesting that it's shaped like this. Top, you have that higher perspective. You're beyond good and evil. So let us continue our observation. You have the Krampus, that devil figure with his, what is that called? It's like basically twigs or rods that are bunched together, basically like wicker. you would say, a rod for wicking, a birch or a wicker, a rod for wicking. And it was made out of willow. So basically, willow wicker or willow birch. And then that devil figure would really um, beat the children with this willow wicker on their bum, on their behind, if they didn't behave good. That was in the 20th century. Mind you, these traditions have nowadays mostly disappeared. Maybe in some mountainous regions of the Alps it still exists because there has been really some violence also. Sometimes these people portraying the campus figure, they have gotten out of hand. So in my case, I and my brother, we experienced this, I don't know, what, 3, 4, 5 years. My parents really arranged for such a Saint Nicholas to come and to read us out of the book of wisdom, the book of fate. And it was impressive how he knew all these things. Mind you, we were little. And once, when I was already older, then campus came. And my parents warned me before, be careful. It could be, because in this year, I was already grown, like 8, 9 years or something. And children change their behavior when they get a little older. And so there was really that campus behind. And he was hiding behind the Nicholas when he spoke to us, but sometimes he came out. And in the very end, when St. Nicholas went out of the door, he slapped me slightly on my behind. Not my brother, but me. And so I knew, okay, that is justice, because I knew what I had done, that I didn't behave perfectly in those days. So it's quite interesting that for educational purposes, this ancient tradition and ancient story of St. Nicholas was taken in that way. So symbols we spoke about, the crozier, the Book of Fate, and the 3 apples or gold balls, which are reminiscent of one of St. Nicholas' miracles, as you remember, the donation of the with gift or the endowment that I spoke about, and which were later to become an ornament of the Christmas tree. So you may know these golden globes or orbs that we nowadays put on Christmas tree. And if you go to the mountainous region of the Alps, they sometimes don't put golden orbs on the Christmas tree. They still put apples on the Christmas tree, which was also the other or alternate symbol of St. Nicholas' golden apples. His companion is the Campus, Knecht Ruprecht or Swarte Piet. These figures probably go back to pre-Christian Roman Saturnalia and the Pan worship, also to Germanic roots like Odin and Sleipnir the horse riding through the storm, perhaps also pre-Bavarian customs in the Alpine region, and to represent the tamed evil, or also to project it, because it's the evil inside us, really, that can be tamed by the principle of light that is St. Nicholas. So the whole story is really about darkness and light. And St. Nicholas Day on the 6th of December, you may become, on that day, on St. Nicholas Day, 6th of December, you may become aware of your deeds, your light, but also your shadows, and contemplate what fate they will bring you, those good and bad deeds. Now, the 4 things that you do in the Holy Nights, I told you about them already. You work with oils. In the old days, and it's not the Druids, they had already oils. They had already potions that were made out of essential oils. It's also known, of course, in the whole Egyptian and Greek and Roman history, and also in what is nowadays Palestine or Israel, holy oils were used. So This was the first part of the rituals in a night of lot. Second part was walking out, gazing out of the window or the balcony or going to a T crossing and just watching what flows by, like the flow of time. And you would stay there in the forest for 15 to 30 minutes before returning home. But first, stepping backward 30 steps before you would turn around, because in that gazing into the darkness at a T crossing in the forest, you would stay there for 15 to 30 minutes, however cold. You would be well dressed, of course, and you would connect to the flow of destiny or the stream of time. And this is something I really do, and some of you, don't know in the English speaking, but in the German speaking, some they do it. They go out and they have marvelous experiences, because who else is out there in the winter or late autumn forest? And you really get transcendent experiences, and you might not see really something, but you get some impressions. You might not hear something, but some people hear a message. You might not feel something concrete, but you get kind of intuitive or empathic perception. And it's really like a download of meaning in each of these holy nights. And in this particular, if you still go out after this live stream, then you might understand more about karma. You might understand more about justice or cause and effect, and how you can go out of this pendulum and go to the point above and beyond the axis point, the point beyond good and evil, as Jesus called it. The third thing, by the way, would be to, when you come back home or when you stop gazing out of the window, out of the balcony, to write down the impressions that you had this time with the fourth holy night, with regards to justice, with regards to fate, with regards to darkness and light, with regards to how do I get out of this? How do I attain freedom? And I'm sure after listening to this, you get already a lot of ideas. The fourth part would be you go to bed, and after you have done the oil ritual or smudging ritual with sage or frankincense or myrrh, that was also used in the olden days because oil was much more expensive back then as it is now. I mean, it is more valuable, it is more precious. After gazing out into the causal sphere, the world of ideas, after writing down what comes to mind, and after that you go to sleep, and then of course you dream, because you have a lot of input, a lot of triggers, and you will have vivid dreams in those nights. And remember, the second night is particularly important, but all the 6 nights of Lot have very powerful dreams. If you remember them, write them down the next morning, because they will be a help in the holy nights, which is the second phase. Before, by 7th of January, we step out into the real world again, and then we are out of this tunnel, this portal time, first the silent time, then the holy nights, and then we are in the new year. So we are already transiting by now, and you might feel that already. So a few suggestions how you deal with the oils. I'm presently in Zagreb, Croatia, because I have a fair here, and I brought the wrong oil. I brought the oil Gary's Light. And in fact, it's not Gary's Light, it's the gift, which I left in Salzburg or also in Heiligenhafen. My main seat, by the way, is in Heiligenhafen, where I spent 9 months of the year. And about 2 months of the year, I'm in Salzburg. Well, and of course, I'm traveling here and there. But that's about how my time is spent between these 2 locations. And sometimes, of course, I go, like now, to Croatia, which is also a very nice experience. But because of this, I forgot to bring the right oil. So I show it today only with this particular oil, which is the giant fir or grand fir, the Idaho Grand Fir. The fragrance of Grand Fir essential oil is uplifting and comforting to the mind and brings peace to the emotions. especially during the Advent time and Christmas season, which people so longed for in the dark times of cold times of the historic Saint Nicholas. Grand Fir oil will ground you, the body, emotions, and also empower the mind. So it's a tree, one of the mightiest trees. It has strong roots and it really goes up high and it channels also atmospheric energy, similarly like the Northern Lights black spruce. It will bring emotional balance to the mind and body by aligning the sacral and the heart centers. And this is now quite interesting. If you have the oil, take a drop out and apply it on the crown and on your feet on the one hand, crown and feet. And then, if we come closer now, apply it on your heart and your sacral plexus. So your fourth and your second chakra. So first the higher crown, feet, and then the closer to your center, the heart and the sacral plexus for the emotional balancing and aligning. And of course, you see me the whole time holding this little bottle in front of my nose. I think you know the drill by now. This is called aromatic breathing or actual aromatherapy. And this is done or recommended to beginners for 1 to 3 minutes of concentrated breathing. And if you're advanced aroma practitioner, for 3 to 5 minutes. Breathing concentratedly from the bottle and then watching or observing what happens to the body, which parts of your body react. Because sometimes a part of the body says, hey, please put the oil also there. And in my case, for example, right now, I had it before in the German live stream, my neck was reacting. But now I feel primarily my shoulders. And that might be, of course, very different for you, but watch for these signals because oils are adaptogenic and your body reacts, and the wisdom of your body knows where the oil is best applied topically. So after applying to crown and feet and heart and sacral plexus for this alignment of heaven and earth, and then this emotional alignment between heart and second chakra or sacral plexus, you apply, if you feel resonance in any part, any other part of your physical body, you apply it there. And all you do now is just sit there and feel how this balancing, how this harmonization is taking place. You will feel it happens by itself. The oil, Grand Fir, if you have it, is so strong that this energetic energy balancing, as Gary Young called it, is taking place for itself. So it's good for those who especially get out of balance emotionally very easy and then go out of body or out of shape. It also brings a nurturing, warm energy to your heart, which allows you to feel safe, to follow your heart. And this is very important. Follow your heart, follow your truth. This is all about truth and justice and finding your eventual freedom versus allowing your head or the thoughts to dictate your every move. This oil has been called previously Idaho Balsam Fir, but in 2019, 2020, there was the Personal Care Products Council making a conference in the United States, and they approved the request of various botanists, but also trade, that the genus and species Albius grandis would be used for both the balsam fir and the grand fir. Albius grandis, as you hear, Albius is fir, grandis is of course grand, or Idaho Grand Fir. They are from chemotype very, very close together, and now both are called Grand Fir. This is why Young Living changed the name from balsam fir to Grand Fir. This is the one application, and the second oil which I don't have with me. Luckily, Gary's Light, which will come at another night of lot, has 4 of the 7 oils identical with the gift, so I can still use this particular oil. But if you have the gift, of course, you're lucky, because the gift as an oil works even more precisely for the purposes we have for St. Nicholas Night. And the gift by Young Living contains and you see me again smelling, doing the aromatic breathing. If you have the oil, please also do it, because it's really doing something that is very helpful for you. Aromatherapy is quite a serious and scientific thing, and if you come into the habit of doing it really concentratedly, focusedly, so if you begin at 1 to 3 minutes inhaling, if you advance 3 to 5 minutes, you will get quite some benefit. So the gift contains what? First and foremost, obvious candies, the Grand Fir. Secondly, it contains sacred frankincense, which is also in Gary's Light. Third, it contains jasmine. The gift contains jasmine, which is for purifying the heart, an oil, by the way, that Cleopatra loved and used strategically. Then the gift contains Northern Lights black spruce, perfect together with the Grand Fir, Idaho Grand Fir. These are the 2 most energetic trees, channeling down atmospheric energy. It contains myrrh, that is also contained in Gary's Light. It contains vetiver. The gift contains vetiver, which is great for grounding and striking roots. And it contains cistus, the Heart of Truth oil, which is also contained in Gary's Light. So I'm getting away with more or less by using this oil for exception. But if you have the gift, please use the gift, because you get the more precise result. This is the right oil for the occasion of St. Nicholas. The gift is a blend of 7 ancient oils. Here you have them: balsam fir, black spruce, sacred frankincense, myrrh, jasmine, vetiver, and cistus, that have been prized for centuries for their calming properties. This blend helps to strengthen spiritual connections and promote feelings of centeredness and well-being. Its calming properties help to soothe emotions, and boost self-confidence. How to use it: after you did the aromatic breathing, you take a drop or 2 of the gift, activate it 1, 2, 3 clockwise, and you apply it on your 7 chakras. If you are a more dreamy person, more up in the air, less in the reality of material things, then you should apply the oil first on your crown, on your third eye, then going down on your throat, your heart chakra, your solar plexus, your sacral plexus, and finally your first chakra, your root chakra. You can even go down all the way to your feet. Now, if you are a more grounded person, a more material person, or even materialistic person, then you go the opposite way. You apply the gift first on your root chakra or even foot chakras, on your second chakra, your sacral plexus, then on your third chakra, your solar plexus, then on the heart, on the throat, and finally on the third eye and on the crown chakra. And so either going down, bringing the energy down, the higher energy down, or going up, aspiring, reaching up. And these are the 2 ways also these trees take. The trees transport their juices through their roots up into the highest top of the tree and into the farthest branches. But also, the tree takes down the light and takes down the atmospheric electricity through its needles, mind you, and through its shape like an antenna, and transports and distributes it also. This is why fir trees, spruce trees, needle trees in general, conifers. They are such great trees energetically. The gift is a reminder not only of the gifts that St. Nicholas brought, but of the one great gift, and this is the gift of freedom, eventual freedom, through the knowledge of good and evil deeds, through the knowledge of cause and effect. The individual oils contained support the spiritual process of realization, which leads to finding a higher destiny than was previously possible. So this is how you work with this second oil blend. And I give you some final informations, important informations. I spoke about these two great halves that are mirrored at winter solstice. So winter solstice is the axis before, from 24th of November, comes that Advent time or silent time in which the 6 nights of Lot take place, or oracle nights. After the winter solstice, usually on the 21st of December, come the holy nights, the 12 holy nights, which include the Christmas days and nights, and which end with Day of the Magi, or Day of the Three Kings or Three Wise Men from the East, so on 6th of January. And then 7th of January, we're finally back in the world. And again, Carnival time restarts. That has started already on the 11th of November till 24th of November. And now it goes from January 7th, usually with some delay because people are still somewhere in the tunnel, even if most people don't know why there is such a tunnel, such a portal. But you know now. And usually that carnival season goes all the way till mid of February, 14th of February and beyond. And usually towards the end of February or sometimes in the beginning of March it ends, and then the fasting time starts leading into Easter. I give also this year guidance with 2-hour live streams every day through the whole Holy Nights, the 12 essential Holy Nights, including 2 preparation days and the day of the 3 Magi or the 3 Kings, from 21st of December till 6th of January. And also, because people have asked me to extend this training throughout the year, because in the Holy Nights we are projecting and manifesting in the 12 months. So as a refresher, if you take the bundle number 2, which is a bigger bundle than just the Holy Nights, we do 12 live streams for the Holy Nights year. That means each month you get another 1.5 or 2 hours. And there is even package number 1, the most prestigious bundle, and this is where you get direct personal coaching or private coaching from me. One in January, which is for winter, for the winter season. One in end of March, beginning of April, which is for the spring season. The third in the end of June, beginning of July, which is for the summer season. And one in end of September, beginning of October for the autumn season. And these personalized coachings, where I'm really in the process with you, will tell you a lot of meaning of these 4 seasons, because also most people don't figure out how important these 4 seasons are and why they are as they are and how they interact with you as a spiritual being, but also as a physical being, as an organic being, how they interact also with your health and your energy and everything. So that's the biggest bundle. And I have quite some repeaters. Actually, it's amazing because it's so powerful. But whether you take the smallest bundle with just the Holy Nights, or including the essential Holy Nights here, or even the biggest bundle, including the personal private coaching, I can promise you, you will not look back, because the Holy Nights and also the Holy Nights here, you get for the price of 1 year, you get 3 years. That's right. For the price of 1 year, if you click the link, and you find it also in the video description of this live stream or recorded video, whenever you see it, you go here, and it starts at $97 for 3 years. That means 45 live streams just for the Holy Nights. If you take the bigger bundle, then it's 177, and you get like 81 live streams. So you really guide it safely and supportively and visionarily through 3 years. And this is something you might take advantage of. And then, of course, the biggest bundle, 777, because then you get basically 4 hours of my lifetime. This is not for 3 years. This is important. This is for 1 year to personal private coaching, because otherwise my time would run out too soon. But even to my own surprise, I have quite a few repeaters because it's so valuable. We are using in the Holy Nights, as well as in the Holy Nights here, 55 different essential oils and oil blends. That means also your knowledge in aromatherapy, in aroma practice will increase decisively. I've heard from people that even aromatherapists envy them with the wealth of knowledge they have. And if you join, use the link, check out the landing page and get your bundle, and you're in for a real treat. This has been the fourth night of Lot, or fourth night of Fate or Destiny, or the Oracle night number 4, the night of Saint Nicholas. Cause, effect, and freedom. One of the most important things we can learn in our earthly existence. And now, please go. You have done now, if you had the oils, you have done now the aromatic part. Now go and gaze out into the starry sky. Actually, it's full moon. Don't know if in your part of the world the full moon is visible, but it's 5th of December, also full moon, which is particularly nice for looking out into the sky and just seeing what you cannot see, just gazing. And then maybe listening. If you really go out in the forest, in the T-crossing, really listen. Also, even on the balcony, you can listen, unless you're in the middle of the city and there's big streets around you. And then write down, maybe already in your Holy Night journal, and then go to sleep, go to dream, and then also take note of your dreams. And eventual 5th part, in the case of this particular night of cause, effect, and freedom, or night of fate and justice, is contemplate tomorrow on the 6th of December on St. Nicholas Day. What does fate mean to you? What does justice mean to you? How do you understand cause and effect? Light and darkness, good deeds and bad deeds, and what will eventually lead you to freedom? How do you go to the assembly point above, the point beyond good and evil, to come out of the pendulum swing? I salute you. Thanks for participating. We see each other again in the 5th Holy Night from 12th to 13th of December, which is the night of darkness and light, the night of Saint Lucia.